Hello, and thank you again for joining us for our In Dialogue series here from the Louisiana Children's Museum. My name is Holly Dalfres, and I am the In Dialogue Director, and I'm joined today by several of my colleagues, and we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of nature education and also the connection between nature and play and the importance that those two things do when they interconnect. So with me, I have Stephanie Aubert, who is our Sustainability Learning Director. I also have Alana Moore, who is our Education Outreach Coordinator. And then I have Karin Sandstrand, who is our Impact Areas Specialist. So I'm basically just going to be the person on the sidelines. I want you to be able to hear from our colleagues here and let them have a discussion about the kinds of things that they feel are most important about nature play. So I'll just ask you to start out kind of introducing yourself and letting us know a little bit about your background, how you're connected, how nature became a big part of your career, but also sort of your own experiences with nature. So we'll let each of y'all introduce yourselves and then we'll kind of go from there.
That sounds great.
All right, Stephanie?
Sure. My name is Stephanie Aubert, and I am the Sustainability Learning Director here at LCM. When I was a little girl, from as long as I can remember, I've loved nature. There was almost like a right-of-way between my neighborhood behind my house and then a neighborhood behind the house, and it was forested. It had like some scraggly trees and things like that. I spent all my time back there. I built forts. I explored. I used to find caterpillars and build little habitats. I just loved it. I loved it from day one. I was also really fascinated by ants from a really early age. And I remember seeing this diagram in this science book that I had. And it was like the underground ant community. And it had all the intricate social intricacies of how ants organize themselves. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And I became an ant protector from there on out. I was probably 4 years old. Mm-hmm. And then my academic background is environmental science and policy with an emphasis on sustainable and resilient communities. I also have a master's in environmental management. And so I've just been kind of an advocate for the natural world since as long as I can remember.
Wonderful. And then Alana, you're a little bit more local to us.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your background with nature.
Of course. So my background actually in terms of like learning and having these kind of experiences was really not very present. I grew up in Houma, Louisiana, which is down the bayou, about an hour south from here. And there really wasn't much about biology, ecology, like really appreciating the natural wonders around, but it's sort of baked into the culture. Me and my father and my mom would go and take the boat out. We'd look at alligators. On the everyday drives, you'd see wildlife, herons, so many different critters that I didn't quite come to appreciate until really my college years. I studied anthropology, and largely because I wanted to understand why people acted like that, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Like I would see people throwing trash out the windows, amid all this wildlife, and it really just didn't click to me how this could be. So I went to school to study anthropology and then eventually urban studies, and then moved more into the environmental space because it is such a big issue here in Louisiana. Policy-wise, our health and wellness, there are so many things that are impacted by our economy, is literally based on being the sportsman's paradise and our natural resources production. So I came to this in an academic sense and in a career sense, largely because of where I grew up.
Gotcha. And then, Karin, you kind of come with a dual background that informs this, not only from the international perspective, but also more from the social emotional learning and wellness perspective. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, my name is Karin Sandstrand. I'm the Impact Area Specialist here, and I run a program called Play Power, where we focus on social emotional learning. So for me, I grew up in Norway. And there was like not nature play everywhere. It's just outside, right? It's just nature everywhere, and everybody would play outside. And I grew up in, the 70s and 80s, and we were all just outside all the time. Everywhere I lived, nature was right there. In Norway, we have the saying that goes, "There's no bad weather, only bad clothes." So there was always you're always prepared for the weather that comes. That being said, though, we don't have the extreme heat that we have here.
Yes.
So that is an issue. And also, Like there's no snakes, there's no fire ants, there's like, there's no alligators in the streams or like, so it was safer.
Enjoyable nature.
Very much enjoyable nature, yeah. So being outside is always just like, that's what's healthy. It's always been like instilled in me. We grew up that way. And now like moving here and working in preschools here has always been important for me to wherever we are. Like a city school that I worked in, we didn't have a lot of like a big garden, but what we had, we would find nature there, right? And I would bring the nature inside to the classroom. So nature's always been a part of teaching the children how to love nature has always been a part of what I do, and also because of all the health benefits that nature brings that we will talk a little bit more about.
Absolutely. And I think a big part of it is, as you were saying, for those of us that are a little bit older, we grew up just playing outside. Yeah. And now with the students and the children that we see that are visiting the museum, we really are having to be very deliberate about introducing nature and sustainability and preservation with them. Yeah. So talk a little bit about how in each of your areas you are introducing nature education, talking about, helping children to understand how they can be a part of nature.
I think for me, it's something that I've jumped to because, like I was mentioning, where I grew up, it was not a part of my education, and I was born in the early 90s, so like I'm right at the precipice of not having the internet, but also having the internet.
Right.
So I do appreciate the benefits that, like, just this morning we're out there pointing our phones at a flower and it's telling you exactly the species scientific name. Like, things like that are things I dreamed of whenever I was a kid, and now it is commonplace, and I think that it's really important to have these sort of like natural experiences and connecting both of these realms of existence, because like while yes, technology is an amazing asset, what we have here on Earth is a once in a lifetime, once in a million chance. Like wood is less common than diamonds when you think about it universally, sort of thing. So like putting that sort of stuff into perspective for kids to really have them see like what you are getting to see just outside of your window is a miracle unlike any other sort of thing. And building that appreciation is something that I have started to do because I was not given that when I was young. So for me, the ethos behind all of the programming I create here at LCM is creating what I wish I would have had whenever I was in 3rd and 4th grade and things like that.
Wonderful. And I know you supervise one of our programs that's specifically geared toward sort of conservation and nature awareness.
Yes, the Living with Water program here has been going on for at least 3 or 4 years. It's largely a 3rd grade based program where we have the kids both come to the museum and experience our 8.5 acres of wildlife here. There's an alligator that in my years here, I've come to learn his schedule so I can tell them exactly where he'll be and when. He's more or less my friend at this point, and it's I can tell these kids and they think I'm a wizard, but I'm just like, no, it's observation. And it's that I am interested in what is happening around me. And so I pay attention to it. I take notes, like these naturalist practices that I didn't come to realize were scientifically based are things that I just kind of started organically doing. And now teaching kids about them at a young age and instilling that early is important.
Gotcha. So it sounds a lot like you are doing sort of the more Titan version, like drawing in on the view. And Stephanie, yours kind of is more of a global, overall programmatic kind of view.
Sure, I would agree with that. I think the two of you already touched on a really important point in this digital age. I remember learning about food chains and food webs from an early age, and it was kind of a 2D map and way of presenting the information, and that was really wonderful. But what I find is when you spend time in nature, you get that in a different way, and in a way that it sticks. Albert Einstein said, "Look deep into nature, and you will learn about just about everything," or something like that. Yeah. To me, the natural world is a living laboratory that can be used to teach just about any topic, really. The cause-effect relationships at play in ecosystems help curious minds understand how everything in the world is connected. Kids are natural systems thinkers. Have you ever noticed how young and curious minds will ask lots of questions? Mm-hmm. They are trying to build connections in their mind through these cause-effect relationships. They are trying to understand the world holistically. A systems thinking perspective allows us to understand how one part of a system impacts all other parts because everything is connected. In fact, what is readily available to observe in nature are living, breathing systems within systems that are connected to other systems. Observable patterns in nature can help learners build a framework and a lens to view the world around them, and it can be applied to almost every field. Mathematics, engineering, mechanics, computer science, law, economics, medicine, you name it. All of these things rely on systems to understand how to get along in the world. So really, there's career opportunities for everyone when you start thinking about systems, and nature is a great platform to understand these. Ecosystem dynamics give us all, every single one of us, insight into the world around us. This is really important for kids when they're growing and learning. They're also the most curious of all of us, typically. Engaging with nature and the natural world encourages curiosity, empathy, problem solving, and critical thinking from an early age. And that's really what ecological literacy or eco-literacy is all about. It's kind of a buzzword these days. And really what it is understanding ecological principles and interdependence of these parts and how they interact, and applying these principles to human and social systems. And so that, to me, is sustainable learning in a nutshell.
Exactly. I'd like to say with what you're saying on systems thinking, we could talk all day about the outside world we have here, but here at the museum, all of our exhibits are based on the same sort of systems thinking. When you go to our river exhibit, you'll notice the license plates going along that will actually show you the states the Mississippi River passes through. So many of the things we have with our bean machine, with our dig into nature, like our sediment table, all of these things all really point to the fact that things are interconnected. With the program I run, we have kids use our sediment table to model rivers, and a lot of them don't realize what you're doing at the headwaters is affecting the folks that are downriver. And once you kind of actually illustrate that to them to say, you made this choice and this actually flooded your friend's house down here, will make them have these connections to see how these things are connected.
Right.
And that is available inside the building as well as outside all day.
Yes. Well, and it sounds to me like, as you said, interconnectedness, that all of this is kind of interconnected, and you move from the view of the world to the view of the world around me to the view of the world within me and nature within me, which is kind of where Karin's area kicks in, this idea of the connection between nature and wellness.
Yeah.
So speak a little bit about that and what kind of things we can do to help support children in their connectedness to nature.
Yeah, so, for me, since I work with the very, very young ones, for me, it starts with them just seeing nature right where they are. And it is about helping parents help parents create this relationship and foster connection to nature with teaching them about the benefits of it, right? So being outside fosters gross motor development because you move a lot. With movement comes your brain development. You get all your senses gets involved in that. Being out in nature and greenery, it lowers your cortisol levels, which will reduce stress and anxiety. And when all of this is happening, when the children play outside, it's also happening to the parents, right? So when we think about like nervous system regulation, when a parent shows calmness in the nature, that also translates to the children.
I think that's also a part of what we try to do here at the museum as well, is that all of us are involved in programming that reaches out to children that are in the schools. And often there is so much that is going on within their schools that's an element that's kind of missing. And so we absolutely are trying to include that here in the museum, but we also are trying to support teachers as well to kind of, make that connection between, we know that there's content that has to be covered, but there are ways to do it in a more holistic way of doing things too. So talk a little bit about how parents can kind of utilize all of these different things to help their children sort of understand and be a part of nature.
Yeah, so I think it starts with language. So the language that parents use when they are with their children. So we like to say as educated, language creates reality. So the language you use will reflect the values that you have. So when you use a language that would spark curiosity and foster engagement, it's going to make your child also curious about what they see, right? So if you're out on a walk and instead of saying, oh, this is a tree, if you go closer, be like, whoa, look at this bark. I wonder what it feels like, right? If you see something, let's say you're scared of spiders. So trying to teach yourself instead of saying, oh, that's not for me. You can say, ooh, look at that, a spider. If your child wants to get closer, you can say, that's not for me. I don't want to do that. So like the language that you use, you're the biggest role model and you're your child's rock star. So how you engage with nature is what they are going to see. So like really foster that curiosity is what's going to make them feel closer and connected to the nature.
I like what you say about language being kind of the basis of it, because like that means of communicating and expressing what you are observing in the world around you. Like I think one of the tenements of the Reggio Emilia approach is the environment being the third teacher. And while that's typically speaking about, the objects around you in your classroom space, it also can apply to truly what are the trees outside? What is the season you're experiencing? Like things like that have been intrinsic in life in Louisiana because crawfish season is the spring and crabs are the summer and oysters in the winter. Mardi Gras, like things like this, our traditions and our ways of life are so based on the ecology around us. And so there are ways to start noticing these things truly with just what is around you. The irises are in bloom right now. So saying we didn't see these flowers yesterday. Right. Now they're here. I wonder why. Or like the pelicans here at LCM will come through usually December-ish to February. And so whenever you start to make these continuous observations and really see how the world around you is changing and active and you are a part of it, it creates this space where you become more aware of your roles within the place that you're in, but also within the bigger systems of the ecology, the social systems, like the built and the natural environment we are all a part of.
And I think it's the importance of making this knowledge that you build with your child visible, which is also our Reggio Emilia approach with the documentation. Doing that at home, having like a simple brain map at your home and be like, what did we observe today? And add it to the map. Was it a plant? Was it a bug? That is going to keep that curiosity living, right? Whenever you go outside, like you don't have to travel far away to go to a park to be in nature. You can go right in your backyard. You can walk down the street and see a crack in the pavement and then go home and be like, let's add it to the map. Well, what did we see in nature today? You're going to see it build.
Absolutely. That is so true. And I completely agree with everything you're saying. The dynamic nature of the natural world is just that. There's endless opportunities for things to discover, descriptive words to practice and learn and use. And you can start, it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the country, you look out your window, what do you see when you look up? What do you see when you look down? And you open your window. Is it windy? What is the weather doing? It is constantly changing, and it's really interesting and provides so many opportunities for kids to make connections and use mindfulness.
You taught me about a fun game where it's like, how many leaves of different species, different varieties, different shapes, different colors can you find within a 10-foot thing? And it's like a scavenger hunt,
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. So it starts by looking out the window, and you open the door to go outside. You take 1 foot, and you look around you. You look 3 feet in front of you, or to the side of you, how many species, how many different leaf shapes will you see on the ground? If it's a built environment, that's an ecosystem, right? You'll see an insect crawling. You might see something growing in the cracks. There's ecosystems everywhere. Some of them are built by us, but in my opinion, we're all part of nature.
But I mean, here in New Orleans, we're one of the greatest examples of truly being like the built environment and the natural environment are so completely intertwined, One of the ways that I get the third graders in the Living with Water program excited about what we're doing is I'll ask them, how many of y'all have been to a swamp? And some of them, will raise their hands, tell me specifically, oh, I went to the Bluebonnet. I went to, Jean Lafitte, whatever. Whenever I tell them, you've all been to a swamp because you're literally in one right now. New Orleans was built on a swamp, and I start bringing in that more like natural ecological history and tying it to the built environment. Like we chose to live here because it's at the mouth of the Mississippi River. It's really great for resources. The soil is very fertile, et cetera, et cetera. And then you tie that into you are truly within a swamp. We have our cypress knees here. We talk about cypress trees, and I remember I was talking to some sixth graders, the whole class, they had never seen a cypress tree, quote, I leave that day and there are 3 right outside their school that have been there for at least
all of a sudden
30 or 40 years. And so the next day I came in and I said,
Right.
guess what? You guys, actually, you have seen a
have one
cypress tree
here.
every single day. You
Well,
know?
I think that's another thing for us to help children understand and appreciate too, because even just thinking about exiting the front door of the museum, you can at one point see alligators, turtles, pelicans, anhingas, herons, fish, all kinds of different types of plants that are growing. Some deliberately planted, and others that just spring up. And so I think, as you were saying, that the connections that we're forming, I think that is a possible use of the internet as well, because if you never know that people in other places don't ever see a pelican, then you don't appreciate the uniqueness of it and what goes into the nature of our area. But you may not ever we're not likely to see a gray wolf or something come into our area, but that may be something that a child in Alaska or somewhere in the Northeast is able to see. And I know especially as people become more like sort of the diaspora of people, like as they spread out, you have all of these interconnected elements that you're able to rely on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to say, because I grew up at the age of internet, I think I started using the internet in like 6th grade or something. What else do we call the internet? The World Wide Web.
Right.
It's an
It is a
interconnected
web.
system.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's so cool.
But like building this awareness, I think it's important to remember for parents to be like, well, it's too hot in the summer and I don't, but like to know that being outside just 15 minutes a day has tremendous health benefits. So going out, be like, oh, I'm going to go spend some time in nature. Doesn't have to be this big excursion. It can happen every day. It could be like, oh, let's go eat our snack outside today.
So having a snowball every day after school is an important part.
It is cultural tradition.
Yeah.
It's practicing your heritage.
And also just with the weather here, though.
Yeah.
Like for me, the summers here are really, really hot, right? And then again, to be aware of that language that you're using.
Yes.
So if you're going to always every day be like, oh, it's so hot, like that's going to become a negative thing. If you say something like, ooh, the sun is working really hard today. Let's see if we can go and find some shade underneath the trees and like still use some of that outside time, but you cut it down, because you gotta have to be comfortable for your child to be comfortable too. But make sure you got the right gear. Bring some fans. Have misting fans.
I think that especially is like that sort of, as an adult and as a caregiver, you are the one who's really setting the tone for your child. And it is something that, like you were speaking of diaspora, it is very rare for you to have many generations in the same place now. Like migration and movement is a natural aspect of human life in this
New
globalized
Orleans
era.
is one of those places.
New Orleans is one of those places that is special. Like my grandmother up to 3 generations back are from New Orleans, and like while we moved to Homa, it's not too far, type of thing. And there are so many things that I underestimate until I'm hanging with my transplantee friends.
Right.
With love and respect to them, do not realize little things like keeping your gas tank full during the summer, because if you have to evacuate, the gas is going to run out. These little things that I have kind of embodied because of being multi-generation from the Gulf Coast. It really changes when you are visiting a new place or moving to a new place and having to kind of study and learn these just like idiosyncrasies of the space that you're in, and getting to appreciate that as this is something new for me as well. We are learning together, et cetera. I think is really important for kids to build those sort of connections to you. All of us are in a challenging environment, and it is up to us to overcome those challenges. It works for both environmental issues, but also life in general, Absolutely.
And I think it also gives us a really great opportunity to include children in the research element of
Yes.
it as well, because that's an easy thing to say. What are some of the things that are present here that are not in other places? You know, if you're going on vacation, what are some of the things that you enjoy about where we live that you won't have there? Or I know my parents moved to the Carolinas, and it is killing my father to have steamed seafood.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
and not to be able to get Zatarans. And, you know, he is we call it a pilgrim in an unholy land.
No, Miss
So
Holly,
we have to.
the only reason why I'm back in Homa is my dad we moved to Houston for a while, and my mom refused because she couldn't get crawfish. So I'm only living back in the bayou because my mom wanted the seafood specific from one place.
There you go. There you go. So, yeah, the importance of the interconnectedness. And also, as you were saying, you know, we experience 60 days in a row of hot weather. So it can't be hot every day. So that gives you a language prompt as well each day. So like, okay, today you can't tell me it's hot. You have to come up with a different word. Or, all right, now I want you to describe what you see in 5 words. Or you have to use 2 action words. You know, those kinds of things are a great opportunity to help children increase their vocabulary. And that is one of the things I think that we have lost in moving more toward a digital thing is, you know, you open up the encyclopedia to try to find something, and then all of a sudden you're getting all of these other things that are all around the same letter. You learn all
I think
kinds of
that with
things.
this, though, you can turn it into both language and also data. Like, we've done a
Yes.
lot of really simple data collections, one of these big Post-it notes, and then you put stickers, and we'll say, is today hotter or colder than
Right,
yesterday?
right.
Writing the temperature and graphing it and showing how it's moving. Getting to visualize these changes are things that for young kids, it's really easy to do, and it's really exciting for them. Like, we do a project here, Project Feeder Watch. It's through Cornell University, their bird and ornithology lab, and we'll just literally tally, sit in the window and tally. And the kids love to
have you seen?
make the tallies. They love to use the binoculars. They love to say, oh, I see another one. Like
Right.
these sort of patterns and things really get them into the data where you also lead that into the language. You know, how is this bird different? Do you think it's the same one you saw earlier? Are the colors different? Things like that, and really leading this inquiry and the data collection ties back into all these different things. The language, the data we collect with the tallies, we digitize it and upload it to Cornell, and they actually use it to measure how the birds are migrating, et cetera.
Oh, and with that also, when it gets that hot, for the younger ones that are more hands-on, have nature. Bring your nature inside. You know, you can make those little boxes that you can collect nature. You can like literally take a piece of cardboard and put some tape around if you want an edge and glue nature to it, nature that you find, dead bugs, you know, plants, whatever, and bring that nature
Masking
inside.
tape on your wrist is a great thing too.
Collect nature there. Like,
That's
so when
cool.
are those days where you don't want to go outside, to have nature in your house is another way where you spark curiosity that's going to foster that love of connection. Because if you want your children to fight for nature, they're going to have to love it.
Right. Right.
What I'm hearing is there are opportunities for integrating STEM in the arts
Right.
into nature education.
Don't you know it?
Absolutely. And another thing I want to say, because I want to go back to something Karin said at the beginning about there's no such thing as bad weather, it's bad clothes. I really do want to emphasize the importance of making sure that everybody, including kids, especially kids, are comfortable when they're going outside so that they're forming these positive memories and positive associations. Because the reality is there are some days where it might be a little too warm, but you can still take that 15 minutes and you can learn and do a lot in 15 minutes.
I remember as a kid, I had a period where I didn't go outside because I got stung by a horsefly. And I was like, I was upset by it. I didn't understand it. I was like, well, it's going to be there again. And then I learned to know it's these specific days, specific times, specific.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes nature hurts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Truly.
Well, and I think, you know, again, going back to our emphasis on the Reggio-inspired idea of viewing children as capable, there are so many elements that are tied to exploration of nature that give children a chance to explore that capability that they have. And, you know, even within our city, we have nature preschools and some other things like that. But there are a lot of areas within our very local area that give children a chance to do some of that risky play, the exploration, and where parents can still feel like their children are safe, but they're given the opportunity to go out and like you were saying, do some of that collection or investigate some of the animals that were there. So you might run into a horsefly, but you probably won't run into a wolf.
And so
true.
thinking about like from a parent perspective, to have that focus on building a secure attachment with your child, be in an environment where you feel safe so that you can be supportive versus overprotective in nature.
Right.
And being there with your child as they explore are things that are gonna build that secure attachment with your child.
Yeah. And I will say to parents also, trust your children. They can do more than you think that they can. And so give them opportunities to be able to do some of that as well.
And sometimes nature hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. But it's like I was saying, the overcoming of challenges, like
Right.
how often do you face something that is frustrating, whatever, painful even, emotionally, however, and you have to live through it, learn from it, grow through it, And so that kind of aspect with nature and really getting to see these cause and effect relationships, I think ties back to what you've been saying of systems thinking and how we are in this bigger system and the actions that we make, the choices that we make really affect everyone else, both in terms of like the small aspects of our community. Do you want to throw that bottle out the window or do you want to put it in a recycling bin?
Right.
From those little levels to then, if you're up in Chicago, do you want to toss your bottle into the river that might eventually trickle down to the drinking water of here in New Orleans,
Yeah. Well, we are coming close to that time where we're transitioning out of winter and into spring. What are some of the things that we can be looking for in nature? And then maybe what are some of the ways we can utilize that to help children sort of build their own connections to nature?
If I can plug one thing, the Louisiana Children's Museum has been working with the Louisiana Iris Conservation Initiative to bring back the native Louisiana irises here in the museum. So it is the variety that hasn't been cross-pollinated, the natural one that is endangered because typically they grow in ditches and places that we are, building. So they'll just toss them out not knowing what they are because it's not in season. So we've been working with them. We have a great strand of them in the backyard that we planted last year, and we are on their map for the best viewing sites in the state.
Wonderful.
So one thing you can do currently here in the springtime is to come visit our irises at the Children's Museum. Mudfest is a great one as well.
I was going to say.
Coming up soon. It is a great, great, great opportunity for kids to really get their hands muddy and learn from some of these other organizations in the area doing environmental work. But really all of this is tying into get outside with your kids and notice the seasons, notice the changes, tie what you do back to the place where you're living, because that will really give them a sense of self, a sense of being, and a sense of purpose in these bigger systems,
Yeah. I think sometimes as adults, we hesitate to follow that path because we may not necessarily have the information. So just from a general information standpoint, aside from the irises, what kinds of things should we expect to see in nature?
Well, I think we're kind of headed into rainy season, and rain and water is a really great opportunity to jump in puddles, explore,
Observe.
talk about gravity, flow patterns,
Cause and effect.
compare and contrast what water does on an impervious or hard surface like asphalt or concrete versus what it does on bare soil, which is what it does when an area is planted.
Or for the young one, just offer sensory experiences. Like playing with water is such a regulating experience. It's really good for the nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't
And
be afraid to get wet.
It's a great art material as well.
True. And I will say on this kind of tying it to different scales, we here in New Orleans, there are so many spaces to access the Mississippi River, and a lot of kids will see it and not really comprehend the majesty and the power of what they're looking at. But like I, as an adult now, will go there and I'll look at every boat and try and figure out what is on that boat. Where is it coming from? Like, where are these ships? Are they coming or going? Noticing these sort of patterns and then really tying it to a bigger like map and global sense that where we are based on the Mississippi River is important for global economies, for local economies, and also just for our existence because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the land built from the river. So take your kids to the river. It's a nice little walk, and there's so many points of access that you get to talk about levees, you get to talk about geomorphology, you get to talk about there is so much here.
Well, it's also a great opportunity to talk about the craziness of nature as well, because sometimes you have to go east to get to the West Bank, which is always shocking to people who don't understand our bend. But
I'm obsessed with the Fisk maps that show the different meanderings of the Mississippi River, and that's something that also thinking how you see it now has only been this way for 50 to 60 years. And before that, it was completely different. And before man chose to make these, locks and dams and the old river control structure, we were much more beholden to the power of the river that we now have kind of worked to control it. But then again, thinking about that, can man really control the river?
Right.
Having these sort of like PhD level conversations with a 4-year-old is what we do here.
It's amazing.
And it is amazing to see the connections they make once you really give them the tools they need to do so.
Yeah. And children are often fascinated by the way it used to be in the old days, which my old days are getting further and further back. But, they want to know about that. And that's part of observing that system change that's coming through. So.
I grew up being told that people took the boat or took the P road to school. And so now, even though obviously I rode the school bus, I lie to kids all the time. I'm like, yeah, take my boat down the river,
Right.
Keeping the tradition.
As we're moving forward and as we're helping parents to understand that nature really is a great companion for them, what are kind of the takeaways for this? What are some of the final things that we want parents to really, caregivers, teachers, even children themselves, to kind of understand about our connection to nature?
Well, my main takeaway is that nature is everywhere. Like you can go straight outside your door and find nature right there. Just 15 minutes a day is what it takes to reap those benefits. But that being said, if you're outside in nature with your child and your child is playing and you're on your phone, you're actually not getting those benefits. So you have to be present in nature for your nervous system and for your mental health to benefit from that. And then if there's something, be like, what can I do tomorrow to like bring nature in? I wanted to share my first experience with like nature and having like any kind of like interaction with it was planting the alfalfa seeds on cotton browns and seeing that grow. Then I would cut it, and I'm from Norway, so we eat a lot of bread, open-faced sandwiches, and putting it on my sandwich and eating it. That was the first time I was like, I made this happen. Like I made this nature happen. So like if you need something, be like, how do we start
Super
it
quick.
with your youngest ones, right? And because it grows so fast too. That's what I would do, like 15 minutes a day. Find nature wherever you find it and start grow stuff.
Grow something.
Grow something.
The red bean on the window is a great thing as well.
Really.
Yeah.
I would say for my big takeaway is to really activate these sensory experiences that you can have in nature by creating, is it art? Is it writing? Like making nature stamps, observing how different colors of soil will affect if you mix them with water and create paint. Like these different things that really tie in these senses of smell, touch, taste, all of these different aspects of the natural world, I think really builds these sort of relationships in kids' minds that, not only is nature not a scary place, but nature is something that actually brings us magic, basically. And so really activating that. Get your kids into maps or birds early on because they'll be happier if you do, honestly. Here at the museum, we've got like belted kingfishers, we have green herons, we have some of the most amazing birds. And when the kids tell me, I don't like nature, I'm like, well, do you like Pokemon? And all of them do. And then it's an easy shift.
It's a bridge.
It's a bridge there. Real quick, real easy. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, you didn't mention Limpkin.
Oh, I'm sorry. My favorite, the Limpkin.
Use the World Wide Web, folks, and look up Limpkins. You will not be sorry.
They're saving the world.
I would say look out the window right now if you can.
Yeah.
I would say the power of observation is strong, and start observing today. Start by observing and recording the data of what you see out your window. And then something you could do today after school or this weekend is step outside. Close your eyes. Have the whole family do it. Have everybody involved. Close your eyes. Figure out or start to count how many different sounds that you can hear, and I try to identify those sounds. More likely than not, whether you live in a rural area or a city, you're probably going to hear some natural sounds. Smell. Figure out how many things you can smell. What can you see around you? Can you see any living beings? What living organisms can you find? And then, there's also the touch aspect, use all of your senses, bring all your sensors in, take records, make sure you add the date and see what you can see. It's also really great for mindfulness as well. So there's added benefits. It's just something that anyone can do. All you need to do is look out the window or step outside and see what you can see, and the connections are there, and you'll start to make them.
Try to make it.
I think I have one last tiny point that ties it all together, which is that it has been scientifically proven that hearing birdsong actually reduces your cortisol and makes you feel like more safe. And the reason is, going back to Neanderthal brains, that if you hear bird songs, that means predators are not present. So if you are hearing birds, then there is without this knowledge even, but it makes you calm.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think overall, it sounds like we need to be in dialogue with the world, in dialogue with our backyard, and in dialogue with ourselves. And all of that can happen within nature. So thank you all very much for joining us. If you have any questions, as always, we are available here at the museum to be able to answer those questions, or if you just need a place to come find nature in your area. So we're glad you joined us, and we hope that we will see you next time. And thank you guys very much as well.
Thank you,
It
Ms.
was
Holly.
an honor. Thank
Yes.
you.